It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Monday, October 30th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We got 2G Talks with Eddie Kweon, the Sunday Message Word Study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. Whew. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is Monday once again. I hope you guys really enjoyed your weekend, enjoyed the Sunday service, but it's already Monday. We are ready to start another week together with the Lord. So also don't forget, we got Q&A Thursday. So get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. They could be a question about anything. So go ahead and just send those either in the DM or in the comment section below. If you haven't yet, go ahead and leave a like for today's podcast. And make sure to comment too to build our community. Just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title... Judgment and destruction for Satan and the evil. All right, so yeah, I'm sure once you guys heard that title, we were all like going, oh my goodness, like what kind of message is this going to be? And the message did not disappoint. There's like 7-8 key points with like, you know, at the very end, you know, Sunseem basically did his own Q&A Thursday, but on Sunday he had like 5-6 questions. So great message. We will go over that in the second segment today. All right. So, you know what? Yeah, I'm still like, Sunday message was kind of scary when you just heard the title. You're like, whoa, you know, like, didn't you guys kind of feel it? Like when you heard like judgment and destruction, we're like, what? So it was kind of scary in the beginning. Right? And of course, as you listen to the message, all you can help but say is amen, amen, and amen, right? So yeah, it was a great message. And it's a scary message, but not so scary for us. You know what I mean? It's like, of course, we can relate it to our lives and how it applies to us. But it's scary in the fact that, wow, like this is actually, you know, this is how serious that situation really is. And it's really sad for those that have turned their backs on this history and stuff too. So I think one of the hardest parts is for God to even give a message like that. Like, it's not an easy message to give at all, right? Especially when it comes to people he truly loved. And, you know, it was people that he truly trusted and loved that were fulfilling his will. For them to do this, like, when I thought about it deeply about the Sunday message, basically, it's almost like PTSD for God. Like, let me explain this. It's like the exact same thing happened like with Satan. The archangel that was the closest angel to God turned his back on God, turned his back on God's will, right? And what people do today is the exact same thing. And it's probably even more severe because these are brides, right? They're even closer than children. Like, you know, angels are children, right? So it's even closer than children. It's actually like it's his brides that are turning their backs. And that makes it, when you think about it, that's even worse, right? That's even worse. So I think it kind of brings back like that PTSD and how much it really hurt. And you kind of get it in the message too. So we'll get into that in the second section. I hope you guys will really enjoy that also. For those of you guys who don't know, I am in Korea. If you guys haven't seen my Instagram yet, I've just posted all the stuff I've been here in Korea. I've been here for one night already. It's Sunday. I was actually going to go directly to Wonmyeongdong, but after a 10.5-hour flight, I ended up staying in Incheon, which is like it's the city where the airport's in, right? And I just, you know, after 10.5 hours, I don't want to be in a bus for another 3 hours. So I have a good friend here that's a head leader in one of the churches, and they picked me. It's really such an amazing blessing. It's such a blessing because this friend of mine, I've known them since like 2002, I think. Was it 2002 or 2003 or 2004? I've known them for like 20 years already. Same age as me and everything else. But they came to pick me up at the airport, which I'm so thankful. Then they booked a hotel for me to stay overnight. what else? What else did she do? She bought me dinner. Like, I was so blessed to be welcomed in such a way that the feeling was this was really God doing this for me. And I just felt in my heart like, God, okay, I got it. You really, really are taking care of me. And this is a time for me to grow. It's a time for me to gain something from this trip here, no matter how long or how short this is. So, even for me, I actually didn't. Well, I packed like 3 big suitcase, a duffel bag with just shoes in it, and then my backpack, which has all my tech equipment inside of it. And I threw away a lot of stuff before coming here. And I didn't bring all my clothes. I threw away a lot of stuff. So it's actually a lot lighter than what I'm used to. But there's one thing that was awesome about my flight. So my flight was like 10 hours, 20 minutes, okay? It felt like a 3-4 hour flight. And I'm going to be super honest about that. And I'll tell you why. There's free Wi-Fi on the plane. And the free Wi-Fi is not like social media Wi-Fi. The free Wi-Fi is for texting, free texting. It wasn't like super fast, but it was enough to chat with people. Like, I'm in the plane chatting with people all over the world. Just telling, oh, I'm on the plane, right? And everyone's like so shocked. Like, what? How do you text on the plane? I was like, this plane has Wi-Fi and it's free. So just chatting with people, standing up in the emergency aisle, or what do you call it? Where the section where the bathrooms are, just stretching out, chatting with people and such. Man, the time flew by so fast that I was chatting with people. I watched a movie. I put that post up. How many movies did I watch? I think I watched like 4. No. I would say I watched 2 movies plus 6 episodes of The Sopranos, right? And each episode is like 45 minutes, but I was on and off and on chatting, doing this and that. I couldn't believe how fast time passed. And on top of it, it's the first time ever for me too, is I never fell asleep. Didn't sleep on the plane. Not even a single minute. I was kind of getting nervous, like, oh, should I be sleeping now? But we're already like on the descent. Like, we're getting ready to land. We're already on the descent. I was like, should I be doing this? But then I didn't sleep at all. Just chatting, watching movies, chatting, and this is like having Wi-Fi on the plane, especially free Wi-Fi. It is amazing. Time just flew by. However, about an hour and a half after arriving, it just like hit me like a ton of bricks, and I got so tired, right? Because I didn't sleep on the plane at all. Like an hour and a half, 2 hours after landing, I was just exhausted. And then it was funny because the hotel they booked, the check-in time is weird. It's 9 p.m. and that's why it's so cheap. Because if you check in at 9 p.m., it's very, very cheap, right? So check-in was 9 p.m., which I had 2 hours to kill, and I was falling asleep, like in the cafe and such. And then even when I fell asleep around 11 p.m., or maybe 10:30, I woke up like 2 a.m. Yeah, like even though I slept at 11 p.m., 10:30, I woke up at 2 a.m. And from 2 a.m., just up all night. And, right now, it's like almost 4 p.m. over here. I haven't slept yet since 2 p.m. It's just because I'm so wired on this. This jet lag is really, really getting me. So I know that I'm going to be struggling again tonight just to stay up. But yeah, last night, I miss Korean food so much. I had Korean food. It was so good. I had this thing called kamjatang, which is like it's like potato stew with like big pieces of pork inside. It was so good. And I was like, man, if I eat like this, I'm going to gain weight. So today, I had like, what did I eat in the morning? I had like, those drinks that have like 10 veggies and fruits inside of it. I had that as my drink in the morning. And then I had a salad. I had a salad for lunch. So I'm still looking out for my weight. And guess what, guys? Daniel Baker from Until the End. I'm going to be meeting with him too tonight. But we're going to start working out. I think starting from Tuesday, we'll start working out together over there in Kumsan. So I'm excited about that too. So we're going to be working out together in the Kumsan area. So I'm excited about this, to be working out with someone also. Which means I haven't got to Warmington yet. I'm going to be leaving on a bus right after this podcast. I actually thought I was going to do my podcast tonight, but I think I'd be too tired to do it if I waited I won't even get to Warmington until like 7:38. Not even Warmington, just my accommodations over there. I won't even get there till like 7:38. right? So that's why I decided to, I decided to do as much as I can while I'm here in Incheon. So I'm inside one of the lecture rooms. If you look at my Instagram, you'll see my setup for this podcast. It's not a great setup. I have pillows in front of me and stuff like that, just so that it dampens some of the sound. I hope the sound is okay right now, but I checked a couple of the rooms, and this is one of the better rooms where the sound was pretty good. Yeah, so just let me know if the sound is okay too, right? But yeah, like I said, I'm so thankful. And there's so many signs here. Like one of the signs, like this might not be a sign for you guys, but the crazy part is this church area is called September. That's the name of the area. Like it's like, for me, those of you guys don't know, those of you in Vancouver know, we have a September team. Like we have a September team, everyone born in September. We have like a chat room and it's just September people inside of it because we're all, that's all our birthdays were in September. We made it during that time. We all went out to eat dinner together for all the September babies and stuff. But it's kind of cool that I was, my first stop, the first place I'm in Korea is called September. I was in the hotel called September Hotel. And cool thing was, I think one thing that was really, really cool was the first place I actually went to. So I got off the plane. They picked me up at the airport. They drove me straight to the church area, and the first place I actually went to was the church. So that's, even for me, it felt very, very symbolic, right? Like the first thing I did, and I'm super thankful that God did this, is that I could symbolically start my trip here in Korea, greeting the Holy Trinity, being inside the church and just praying and just being thankful that I got here safely and stuff like that too. So, I'm not sure what it is, but I think you guys might agree with me. There's something really different about Korea, right? It's like, it's very, very spiritual. And, just as much as God is present, Satan is present too. So you're going to see just as much good as just as much evil at the same time. But I even just being with the members here so far already, you can just feel the spiritual grace much more. It's much stronger. It's a different feeling. And just being here, I'm not even in Mormondong yet, but I can feel it. It's different here, right? And I think it's just the conditions that are set here in Korea are much different. It makes me even more realize, like, yeah, you know what? This is why this is like the chosen nation of this time period. I can just feel my spirit open up. And I thought to myself, I was like, oh, you know what? You know why I'm here? And this is it just kind of came out of my mouth when I was talking to them. I was like, and we're kind of joking around, but I kind of felt like, yeah, this is what it is. It's like when Sunseem said last week, he said, the things that have died, you have to bring them back to life, right? So I thought to myself is, I'm here, and I think one of the big things that's going to happen while I'm here is the things that have died inside of me. There's a couple things about, aspects about our spiritual life or whatever it is that might have died. And we just need to be able to, I really felt like when it came out of my lips as a joke in the beginning, but I felt it like, I think this is it. I think one of the things is the things that have died, the parts of me that have kind of died over the past couple of years, it's here to reignite again. And where else would be better than a nation where there's passion and zeal for God, right? They truly, truly love God, not just like Providence, but even in the former faith, it is powerful here. They have pre-dawn prayer in all the churches here. They have powerful praise, powerful preaching, and even the two people that came to pick me up at the airport, one's a head leader and one is like the main members on the evangelism team. And just talking to them, you can really feel how much they truly love God, how much they love people, the people who love God too, right? And I can say that, it's a different atmosphere and feeling with the Korean church members. There just is. And you guys can probably say the same, you guys can probably comment if it's not true, if you don't think it's true. But just for me, the feeling is I haven't been here for over 3 years. And I'm like, wow, this is where I used to live for like 5 years. And I think one of the physical signs here, especially in Korea, one of the physical signs that I feel that what makes them so spiritual, one of the physical signs that God has allowed them to have is their internet speeds, like how connected they are to the internet, how fast it develops here. Like they are so far ahead of North America when it comes to internet. They're so far ahead. Like in North America, 5G is like something that's not cheap. and it's like expensive to get all, like I think just now it's getting more affordable to have unlimited 5G networks. Like that's just happening now in like America. But in Korea, even the free wireless is 5G. It's cheaper, it's unlimited. Like even for me getting my phone plan on my phone plan, yeah. It's awesome. It really, really is. So I was someone just like going, yeah, this is like, it felt like it's a sign that because they're doing it spiritually, connecting to God, good in prayer, they're always calling out to God, and they're always praying so fervently and diligently that God blesses him with that connection, right? Which is the internet here. So I kind of realized like, yeah, I think that's one of the things too, because one of the first things I did, go to the airport, you got to get your SIM card, right? But yeah, my point is, I think it's because they're so connected and their prayer with God is so powerful that they're getting that physical blessing with communication, right? So I am looking forward to my time in Korea. I hope to get some more direction too, just to see. And, since there are so many things that are changing in Providence ever since what happened in March, there's a lot of change in leadership, in system and structure and stuff like that too. So I really want to be able to see the differences and the changes also. And, I'm looking forward to just seeing what's new and just kind of taking it all in so that I can, pray about it and be able to share with you guys also. And, like I'm excited here to visit the churches too. I'm excited to visit the churches here. I've been to this church already, and it's called the Holy Light Church, I believe, right? Yeah, I think it's the Holy Light Church. And just to, seeing the atmosphere, how people are during this time. And I figure, like my feeling is because they just had that huge event, what was it? It was like October 15th, I believe, with the like 200,000 people kind of thing. I think that this could be much more passionate, much more fervent, right? Because they just, they had that, because of that rally, kind of it sparks people to become even stronger too. And I'm pretty sure there are going to be more plans to have these big protests and stuff. I would love to participate at least in one of them before I leave here. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to see how the churches are right now. And, I haven't seen Wolmyeongdong in over 3 years. So I'm even more curious about Wolmyeongdong and how much more it's developed. And just looking at the pictures from the messages too, like it's already awe-inspiring just to see what it looks like right now. And, the one thing that's awesome here, which I'm so shocked by, guys, it's not cold at all. It's 20, 21 degrees during the day. Of course, the mornings and nights, I expect that to be cold anyways. But during the day, it's like 20. It's hot. I'm like wearing like a shirt, like a thermal with a hoodie plus a vest. And I'm sweating because it's really, really hot. So, I was very, very, for me, I was just like, wow, okay, God, God is just completely blessing me. I'm so thankful that the weather is not so cold. Here's something that I noticed, because I was, when I went to Sunday service, and when I was watching Sunday service, I noticed something like, once again, because I haven't been here in such a long time, and I haven't heard seen a service in Korean in a long time, is when I was watching the speaker, the preacher, right? And, the preacher, good preacher, there's about 200 church members in it. But, and I'm going to say this, this has nothing to do with whether someone's a good or bad speaker. This is more about culture, about the country, and what the people of that country look for in a good speaker. You know what I mean? So, I'm going to talk about a couple things I noticed, about 5 different things I noticed that are different than the Eastern speakers. Like I say Korean mainly, because I haven't really seen the other countries. But like the Eastern speakers compared to Western speakers. Like, what do we value more, right? And this could just be my personal observation, but in Korea, like there are certain things that are valued more for a preacher. And I'm not sure about if it's the same as Japan and Taiwan and such, but number one is, like what I noticed is it's very, the speaking is very deliberately slow and super clear. Like every word is absolutely clear. It's a slow pace, right? And because it's, the Korean language has like formal and informal, everything is very formal language, very formal speaking, right? So those are the 2 things. The first thing I noticed was slow and clear. The second thing I saw that people really valued here is using the formal language, because it upholds like how great God's word is, right? It's very, very formal. The third thing I noticed was the preachers have to have a strong presence. So it's the way they carry themselves at the pulpit, the way they look, right? It brings more weight to the message because it's God's word. You're on the pulpit of God. It's very weighty. It's heavy, right? It's more serious. It feels like each word is purposely being given even more power underneath it and stuff, right? So that's the third thing I noticed is kind of this weighty presence that the preacher has to have. Because it's my friend is the head leader. So it's very different from how I know them regularly, right? The fourth thing I noticed is the variation in Korea is different than variation in the Western countries. So like the variation that Western speakers want is from like, let's just say speed. For speed, there's gonna be parts of the message that are super fast. Like, yeah, guys, you gotta understand this, you gotta know this, you gotta da-da-da. Like it's gonna be really fast, right? And like even like when you go to black gospel churches, it's called hoopin'. They're like really fast speaking at the very like pinnacle, fiery part of the message. It's going to be very fast, right? But then if you compare it to the slowest part in a Western sermon, people will be able to hold on to like they'll pronounce a word very strongly and by itself, right? Like it's like staccato. In a Western preacher, they'll have the fast parts and then they'll have these super important parts that people have to remember, and they will make it very slow and staccato. So it's kind of like put the Lord's word into action, right? That's like the slow part. And then you have the guys, you got to get out there, you got to move, you got to get into the streets, you got to evangelize, you got to spread God's word. And it becomes very fast. So the variation in speed is very fast and very slow. But I noticed in Korea, variation is not high and low. Like it doesn't have a very big gap. The fastest speed to the slowest speed is not that big at all. Right? So I noticed that too. So I think, yeah, the variation, whether it's speed or volume or how you accentuate certain words, the enunciation and such, there is not a huge gap or a gap in the variation. The fifth thing I noticed was movement. Now, what does that mean? Movement, which means their gestures. So the expression in Korea with their hands and their body, very calculated, very precise, where Western countries are more free. Like how free do you think it is? Well, we're talking Western countries is free, even your body. Like most people don't even use, a lot of preachers don't even use a pulpit. They just have a stand and they're walking from one side of the pulpit of the stage to the other side of the stage. Very expressive through hands. Like even if you guys watch me right now doing this podcast, my hands are still moving even though I'm by myself, right? Very free. And if you guys have seen me speak before too, I'm walking everywhere. I'm looking at people in their eyes. I'm pointing at sections, right? Sometimes I yell. Sometimes, I accentuate. I slow things down. And that's kind of more of a freestyle. And those are the 5 things that I noticed are very, very different between these Western country preachers and what Western people value compared to what Eastern people value, right? So this is like I'm saying, guys, this has nothing to do whether the preacher is good or bad. It's more about the country, the culture, the style that fits that country, the thoughts and what they value. So that's what I'm actually talking about right now. So please don't misunderstand. I'm not saying anything bad about preachers in Eastern Western countries, right? And I would say that even from an Eastern perspective, I would actually say that in some cases, probably Easterners might think that Westerners are less respectful. I think that's possible too. Right? Some things we do is too free, is too loose. And then in the Eastern countries, they may see that as disrespect. Right? It's probably like that, right? And I definitely want you guys to comment on this, especially those in the Eastern countries too, because this could possibly just be my own thinking and my own observation. Right? So if you're in an Eastern or Western country, let me know what you think about these things that I've noticed, right? But one thing for sure, if you're listening to this podcast, it means, and you're from Asia, it probably means that you're more westernized. If you can understand this podcast and the English that I'm speaking, right? You may be more influenced to the Western style better, but I don't want you guys to think about your personal opinion. I want you to think about the general whole. Like when you go to Japan churches, what is the preaching like? When you go to Taiwanese churches, what is the preaching like? Compared to a Western style, which is very free and very loose. right? So I want you to take a look at it from the broad picture, the big picture, not so much your personal opinion, because I would say most of the Asians that listen to my podcast are very westernized. That's just my feeling that I've noticed, right? So yeah, it's quite interesting. And there's a couple things that I had in my mind. I was thinking about. I was like, yeah, that's one thing I really, really did notice, and I want to get your opinion and your thoughts on that too, right? Yeah, like I'm over here in Korea, and now my schedule has completely changed. There's one good thing is my time schedule is not like Vancouver. In Vancouver, on Sundays, I would have to get the podcast uploaded and ready to go by 2:30 p.m. Here, I'm in real time, which means that here on this Sunday, as long as I get it done by Sunday, I'm fine, right? Because it's not going to come out till the next morning, right after pre-dawn too. So that's why for me, I'm just like, yeah, the time is a little bit more free. I can schedule my time a lot easier while I'm here in Korea. And as long as I get it done before I sleep, I'm fine. So that is something that's kind of a little bit better about being here is I have more time to do it. Yeah. So a new poll has come up. It's about revelations. This week's message did talk about dreams, about Satan, dreams about snakes and stuff like that too. My question to you guys on the poll today is, what revelations do you receive the most? Right? What revelations do you receive the most? Okay. Some people like whether it's dreams, visions, whether it's through nature, through your everyday life experiences, or through the Bible. Like for you, which one is the one that you realize or you receive the most revelations from? So that's going to be a quite interesting one just to see where people get most of their revelations and such. Okay. Well, you know what? Here's a funny thing that happened today. Like before I get into that first break, funny thing that happened. I've been to two cafes already. No, 2 cafes already. One was really good. I gave it 7 out of 10. Second one, I couldn't, like nothing was open on Sunday morning. So I found this cafe, really, really nice owner. But it's like I drink coffee and I rate it. And this one cafe I went to on this morning, and I rated the latte 5.5 out of 10. So it's bad, right? It's not very good. It's a 5.5 out of 10. And I posted it up I mentioned their cafe, and this the owner's right in front of me. She looks at it. And I thought like, oh crap, she's going to be mad. No, she reposted it. She reposted my Instagram story that gave her a 5.5 out of 10 on her latte, which I was like, I don't think she really read it. And then after that, she gave me like some free snacks after. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think she knows that I gave her a bad rating for her latte. But yeah, I don't think they really read the post. Thank God, right? But next time if there's a bad latte, I'm not going to post the review until after I leave that place. Yeah, not until after. But yeah, that's kind of the funny thing that happened. All right. Either way, let's get into the first break of the day. right, so let's get into today's word study. And of course, every Monday we have the Sunday message word study. Hope you guys are really going to enjoy this with the title Judgment and Destruction for Satan and the Evil. Oh, yeah, just even the intro itself made me think deeply. It's like, the intro is like, you have to think about how bad Satan's sin was, right? It's so bad that it couldn't even be forgiven. And it's so bad that you can never escape the lake of fire. Like, when you think about this, guys, it's like, whoa, how bad? You got to think about it at that point it's that bad. Right? And that was like the intro to the message. So let's first go into there's like how many different key, like 7 or 8 key points. So go into key point number 1, which is if you don't obey God, whether it's an angel or a person, it is over. The archangel opposed God without knowing the fundamental will. All right. So let's start off with the big question. So the introduction talked about how bad was Satan's sin that it can never be forgiven and you end up going to hell forever, right? So the question, which is great, is what is the sin that Satan actually committed? All right, what is that sin? So the sin is not obeying. It's disobedience. Like that is the sin that was unforgivable, right? He went against God's will. He did not obey, right? So this is the key point is it doesn't matter if you're an angel. Like, think about this, guys. It doesn't matter if you're a person. Now, we know about human beings, but even if you're an angel, the child of God, even if you're someone that close to him, it doesn't matter. When you disobey, when you go against God's will, then that becomes the greatest sin. So why is it such a bad sin? Why is it such a bad sin to disobey God? Okay? So we're going to get more deeper into what this actually means, because we have to look at what was the original plan? What was the original purpose that God had from the very beginning? What did God really want? God wanted the ideal world of love, the counterparts of love to him in both the physical and spiritual world. But there was a greed that gave birth to Satan. And what was that greed for? It's wanting that love only for yourself. And you might think to yourself like, well, is that bad to, like, say if you have a husband or a wife, wouldn't you want that love only to yourself? Like that husband and wife love, right? And, that's something that's absolutely true. However, you have to think about it in the magnified version. When it comes to brides, right? Having that bride love, which means you will have that individual love with God that is absolutely unique to just you and God. That's your love with God. But God's love is great enough to have this love for the entire world. And that's one thing that we probably don't understand and don't get is can you have that much love to love that many people? But in the end, you have to realize is what the love you get will be more than enough. That love you get from God, that relationship you have with God is enough. And it's not just enough, it is unique. What's it unique to? It's unique to just you and God. Right? So when we realize this, we have to understand that love that you have between you and God is so unique, right? That it is the only type of love you're going to have with God. There's no one else is going to have that type of love. And one of the biggest reasons is, think about this, is one of the things that Sunseep said in the past is the reason why we put the words of God into action when we fulfill God's will, we create stories together with the Lord, which is just between you and God. Right? That's that story that you can talk to, that's that personal testimony you give to other people, which is just between you and God. And people are like, wow, that's so amazing. Oh, I want to have stories like this too. It's your unique time that you have together with God, right? And that's something that we have to realize and understand really well is, when you miniaturize a level, just human beings on the earth, yes, we want only one love between me and my wife, right? However, when it comes to magnified, the bride is a bride history. He wants all human beings. So all human beings become that one bride, right? So miniaturized, it's a single human being, me and my wife. However, when you magnify it, it's that relationship. All of humankind becomes that bride, and God wants that bride only together with the Lord, right? So what we have to understand absolutely and clearly, right, that at this time is we cannot have that greed, right? What kind of greed is it? That greed between, well, if I can't have God, then no one can have God. Like, I want God only for myself. No, right? That's the wrong way of thinking about it. We have to think about magnified and miniaturized. Yes, miniaturized just mean my wife. Magnified, that wife is magnified into humankind and their relationship with God, but each and every one of them will have an absolute unique relationship, right? It'll be so unique, right? So we have to think about it in a much different way in our thoughts and our mind, right? Because when we think too physically, one of the biggest problems we have is we look at the history of God in such a small way. Oh, God is mine. Why do I have to share him with other people? It's a very small way of thinking, right? We have to understand the history in that magnified version and not looking at it from a very small and individual version of just, well, God, why won't God do this? Why won't God do that? Or why does God have to share? Why have to share God with everyone else kind of thing? It doesn't feel like real love. It's a very small way of thinking, right? So remember, God wanted that ideal world. He had that will, but it's Satan that came and opposed. And he was the highest of the angels, which means that being the highest means he's the most trusted. And if he's the most trusted and then he went against God, then he becomes the greatest traitor, the one that betrays. And this is why he was thrown out, right? So even if you think about this too, look at Wolmyeongdong also, and there's tons of people who didn't know the will very well. But there's just one point that I thought was very, very important. Many people opposed Sunstein. Many people said things bad. However, the one thing that was clarified is it's those that only opposed and did not work, right? Because there's a difference, those that oppose are like grumbling, but they still do the work, right? And it reminds me of the parable of the two sons. The parable of the two sons is one son, the father goes to the youngest son and says, will you help me in the fields? And he says, yes. But in the end, he doesn't go out. And to the oldest son, he's like, hey, it's the opposite, I think. And then he goes to the youngest son and says, hey, can you help me on the field? He says, no. But in the end, he goes and helps him out. Who did what the father wanted? And it's the person that went out into the field, even though they're kind of against it with their lips, right? So one of the things it shows is, there are some things we don't know about. And while we're doing the will of God, we are going to experience, well, maybe not experience, we're going to kind of go against it. But the difference is, it's those that opposed and did nothing, no work whatsoever. So they were really against it, right? So we have to kind of understand that at a much higher level too. So even though, like when it comes to Wolmyeongdong too, Sunstein didn't know what the ultimate will was in the beginning. He was just thinking to himself, it's just one of those places, right? He just thought to himself, it's like, this is just going to be one of those retreat places that we're going to have. And he was thinking, and he admitted, I thought very physically. I didn't think about God. However, one of the cool things that I also like what Sunstein said was the design was eventually showed to him after working hard. Which is one of the things that we have to understand is a lot of times when God shows us, when God is going to show us things, not just, from the very beginning, sometimes we have to set the condition and then we realize we work hard. We start working on it. We start digging the land, breaking down the side of the mountain, whatever it is. And when we realize this, we're like, oh, this makes a lot more sense then too, because we'll realize that's what it's about. Yeah, we may not know in the beginning, and we're going to say some things that we kind of grumble a bit, but we're still doing the work, right? And then as we're doing the work, God will show us after we're working really hard about it too, right? And the difference is it's those that do the work and those that don't. And what Satan does is Satan doesn't just oppose the work, but Satan also blocks the work, goes against the work, right? And this is something that we have to understand at a much, much deeper level. It's Satan is the one that blocks, right? He's blocking what the will that God wants to fulfill. Now, the second point I have for you is this. The second one I have is from the messages, hell is a house where Satan's and people who are disobedient to God and the man of mission live. That's key point number 2, right? So we understand that, the archangel Luciel became Satan, right? And he failed to realize what God's will was. And this is why he turned into a snake. And this comes out all throughout the messages, right? And when the message keeps talking about dreams and such, I was like, yeah, I've had those dreams too. One time, I was going through, while I was a missionary, I was going through a really hard time, personal frustrations and such. And then there was a tour that I joined. And right when the tour finished, because I was helping out with the tour as much as I could in Korea, I saw a dream. And in that dream, I was in a house full of snakes. And I wasn't scared at all. And I grabbed the staff and I started to kill each of these snakes in this house until there were none left. Right? And basically, the pastor at that time told me, that's God giving you. You overcame your difficulty and you killed all the Satans that were coming against you, right? It's Satan that comes to block, Satan that comes to break the love, right? And if you think about that, ultimately, that's the best way of putting it. Satan comes to break the love, which is the purpose of creation, right? Purpose of creation is to love. And what does Satan do? He comes to block that love. So we have to be those that completely obey the word. Right? We got to listen to God's word and don't just listen to it. We have to obey it. Right? And that becomes the ultimate thing. So that was a great point too that I really, really like. The third point is God is one. Whether it is goodness, heaven, or the side of the righteous, there's only one. And I like this point too. God is one. What does that mean? There's only one thing. God is one. There's only one side that he's on. There's only one thing that he absolutely believes is right. There's only one side. You're either good or bad. Right? There's only one man of mission. So if you're with God and God is one, there's only one side you can be on. That's righteousness and goodness. So the big point we have to give to ourselves is, will you obey the one that God sends? Right? Because in the end, it's about, it's like Yoda, do or not do. That is the reality. Did you do it or not? It's about good or evil, right? So I like that point. Key point 4. The key point, like number 4, is in your life, absolutely obey what God and the Lord tells you to do. I like this point here too. I think everyone understands this point very, very clear. Right? So one of the biggest things that happens that Satan tries to do is he tries to get you to stop believing in God. Because that's like the ultimate and biggest one. Without believing in God, you can't get anything done. That's the number one thing. Some people said it's so big to believe in God that the moment you believe in God, it's like putting $150,000 straight to your bank account right at that moment, right? And that's how big it is. That first step is to believe in God. That's where everything starts, right? That's where everything starts. So Satan wants to block this, right? Satan wants to block us. Satan wants to disrupt God's will. Satan wants to tempt you. Satan wants to lie to you so they don't believe in God or the one that God has sent. And this is why we have to have that conviction, absolute belief in God, loving God, being united with the Lord, right? And that's the key. If you want to be united with God, you have to be united with the one that he sends, because he's the one that tells you everything that God does. Right? The moment we're disobedient is the moment that Satan comes in. Satan works upon you. Satan puts his thoughts in you too. Right? And that's why we have to be those that have to think at a much, much different level. So I like this point too. Sometimes the path that you're on is actually a better or easier path. But we need to follow the Lord because the Lord knows the right path. Even if the path is treacherous, it's the right one. And the greatest example is Jesus. Jesus took the path of the cross, the treacherous path, but it was the eternal path. There were many paths that were easier, and people said, oh, I can't do this. I'd rather do it this way. But we have to realize, no, it can't be like that. The more we obey, right, the more closer and the more united we are. But the more we disobey, the more we draw further away from God, right? Which comes down to this one point that I thought was great, is drink the bitter cup with the Lord to be perfect. And you got to drink it until the end. And then you're united with the Lord, and then you receive glory.
The fifth key point is only those who obeyed fulfilled God's will and inherited the eternal kingdom. So we know that the entire will of God will be centered around the man of mission or the person that God has sent, right? So everything actually hinges upon whether you follow, listen to, and believe the one that God has sent. And, depending on whether you obeyed or disobeyed that person will determine whether you go to one world or another world, right? It's that big. So this is where we get into this one of the scriptures, right? One of the scriptures is about King Saul. So King Saul, his issue was he couldn't center on Samuel, who was like the spiritual lead. And during that situation, what happens is he ends up doing Samuel's work because the enemies had already come. So because of that, God left Saul and went to David, right? So this is kind of a point where it kind of seems like it's one of these more current situations of do not do the work the Lord should do, right? And there are certain things that we must do, certain things that the Lord must do. And of course, one of the big things about being the man of mission or being the person that God has sent, it's like the decision power. So a lot of times people will try to do the man of mission's job and kind of make decisions, like these big decisions that only the man of mission makes, right? Or give certain education that may not even be true. Right? It might be their own thoughts, their own thinking, which means they begin to center on themselves. So that big point there is don't do the work the Lord should do. And of course, sometimes people are going to say that, oh, I had no choice but to be disobedient to the one that God has sent. But it's not real. Like, is there really I think there'd be so few reasons. Well, would there be any reason to disobey? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's like thinking from your own position. And of course, it has to do with also the severity of what you disobeyed too. Because, there's certain things that, like, for instance, we do have to know that there are levels of it. So what does that mean? For instance, it's not like, remember in the past, it's like, don't drink coffee. It's not like if you drink coffee, you go to hell, right? It's more of the disobedient, like say something as like health. Well, what's going to happen is if you disobey what the man of mission says about what we eat or what we drink, that's going to, the judgment you're going to get is basically going to be about your health. You know what I mean? So you can see that there are certain things that are smaller and some things that are bigger, but I think this is quite obvious that when the message says some people say they became disobedient because they had no choice. And Sunsim was saying that it was because they're thinking from their own position, not from God's position, right? So that seems more like bigger issues more than like the smaller stuff. Like, I look at some of the things where something is very clear, like don't drink coffee or don't drink Coke or, those types of things. It's not like a sin where you disobey and then you go to hell. Those are basically just about your health, right? Sunsi's been very, very clear with that. So we can see that there are some things that are major and some things that are minor, right? Like, do you think there'd ever be a situation like, sorry, I had to disobey about don't commit the fall because I had no choice? And the answer is no, you're not going to, that one's going to be like, yeah, you're probably not going to find an excuse to say that, oh, I had no choice. You know what I mean? So I think we do have to be wise about, what this is saying, because a lot of times people take the word way too literally or way too extreme, where it's even the things that are not like leading us to hell. Like, oh, how dare you? Oh, Sunsi said not to do this. Sunsi said not to do this. Like, that's something I do think that sometimes people will not be able to discern very well. So that is something that I think a lot of people do need to pray about also. And in the message, Jesus and the Holy Spirit said that there are still people that don't believe in the man of mission, right? They only believe in the Holy Trinity and Jesus, but not the man of mission, which is the same as 2,000 years ago where people believed in God but didn't believe in Jesus, right? But the one thing that Sunsim did say is like, yeah, for those people, it's like they have no life in their heart, which is pretty
Pretty extreme too, right? Yeah, if you can't, and that makes sense, because if you can't believe in the man of mission, the one that God is working through, how could you have life in your heart where that's the person God is centering on to create God's will, right? Key point number 6, absolutely obeying God and becoming united with the Lord is defeating Satan. Right? And defeating Satan is an everyday and all-time thing. We don't know when he's going to strike, but we have to defeat him every single day. We're going to get tempted every day. We're going to get tempted at every moment too. So there's going to be a ton of people where Satan is using their bodies and they're influenced by Satan, and they're going to tempt people. They're going to make people oppose God's will. And, these are the people that we have to absolutely we have to defeat at all times, right? So if you think about this, like just thinking about what happened over the last 6-7 months, right? It's like God was, Satan was using people that was appropriate for the work. And, there was some massive damage done from the certain people that Satan actually used, right? And what's the key point? The key point is it's about absolutely obeying God and becoming united with the Lord. And that's the way to defeat Satan, right? So a lot of times when Satan influences people, starts using their bodies, it means that they weren't united with the Lord, right? They weren't absolutely obeying God. And that's why they were being tempted and defeated by Satan. But with us, what do we have to do? We have to be the ones that defeat Satan at all times, right? And how do we fight back against Satan? Well, the message was pretty clear. It's about the words. The words are the sword, right? We fight them with the sword of the word, right? So we have to be those that are fighting with words, not with fists and not with violence, right? And I think another point I really liked is it is Satan using these people. So it's not about hating your brothers and sisters, it's hating Satan that is using them. And our duty and what we should, with that love that we have for our brothers and sisters, we have to lead them back, right? We have to lead them back to God, lead them back to this history. And I think that's a very, very important point, right? When the man of mission, when the Lord comes, what happens? His duty or what he wants is to destroy Satan. That's what he wants. He wants to destroy Satan and, the works of the devil. That's what he wants to do. That's 1 John chapter 3, verse 8. The Lord comes to help us take action. The Lord comes to help us to take action so that we can fight off Satan's work. Because if we don't take action, then Satan can influence us. If we don't take action, then Satan comes against us, right? And we have to be those that reach that next level. So I hope that all of us too, that we have to be those that are not defeated by Satan, but we have to defeat Satan, which means absolutely obeying God and becoming united with the one that God has sent. Key point number 7, defeat Satan and manage yourself. Okay? So, There was an interesting thing in there, and I think it's very psychological and spiritual when you think about the way that it was put. It's like, Satan, their body changes, right? Their body, sorry, I had that on. Their body changes, right? And it turns into, what does it say? It turns into like a snake. But when they look at themselves, they can't stand themselves because of how they've changed, right? So since they can't stand it, they start to hurt themselves. And if you think about this, quite interesting, because this is kind of like human psychology too, is there comes a point where people change in their hearts or their body or whatever it is. They can't stand the way they are or how they, what they've become. And they just keep going down a deeper pit. Now, it sounded very like, wow, like this is what people actually go through. Right? When they change too much or when they realize, like if you look at just physically itself, imagine someone physically gains weight, and you reach a point where you've gained so much weight, you're like, oh my gosh, I'll never get rid of this. And then instead you start, the way you treat yourself, the way you think of yourself, you hurt yourself even more. Right? And I looked at that point, I was like, yeah, that's something that's like people do struggle with that. When they change for the worse, people struggle. And at points, they do give up on themselves too. And I think that's something that we have to stop we have to stop that.
Think about people who, like I would say, used to be leaders, because I've been in this position before, used to be leaders or ran really hard for this history, but then they're not doing the same things anymore, and they're not as spiritual, they're not doing as much for God as they did in the past. And those people can actually get down on themselves a lot, like, oh, what am I doing with my life? Is my life even meaningful? And some people who went from campus to career, or from like full-time to part-time Providence, a lot of people do struggle with those types of things, and we have to be those that kind of stop those things in our hearts and our minds where Satan is making us feel a certain way when we shouldn't be feeling that way at all. Right? So, we have to be those. Like one thing I like about this week's message is it's teaching us how to identify if Satan is using you, right? And of course, the key one that we've heard constantly is you'll know that Satan is using you if you're opposing God's will. Right? And think about this. Think back to what happened in March. If you think back to what happened in March, you can see who Satan was working through, even though it was such a crazy, like, I can't believe this is happening kind of thing. But when you see the result and you see the people that are blocking God's will, you're like, whoa, like Satan is totally using them, right? So, it's something where we kind of look at that like, yeah, you can see the final result, and the end result is you can tell if they are being, you can identify Satan using them if they're opposing God's will, right? And I thought one thing that was really deep was, God will not allow these people to fulfill love, right? It doesn't matter where they go, whoever they meet, because ultimately, that love was created between us and God. It's not just for ourselves. So I think we have to kind of understand it to that extent. So, love is not just about words, right? It's about taking the action. It's about having that, it's about loving with everything that you have in your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And that requires us to be one with the Holy Trinity, one with Jesus, and one with the man of mission. Right? And, when you see why Sunseam never falls for Satan or never gets tempted is because, not never gets tempted, he never falls for the temptation, is because of absolute obedience. Absolute obedience. Right? And I think the three things that Sunseam said we have to manage ourselves really well with. He says, manage yourself. Manage yourself how? Manage your life, manage your faith, and manage your health. Like those three things were the big three things that were brought up of what to manage for yourself, your life, your faith, and your health. Right? And I like this point too is manage yourself first before others. Right? Manage yourself first, and then you're able to manage the weak. Go out, evangelize, bring people, teach them and stuff like that too. But you have to manage yourself really, really well, right? If you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of others? It's kind of like, that the analogy of a drowning person. If you can't swim, why would you go and try to save someone who's drowning? You're going to end up both of you dying, right? It's going to be double the tragedy. So what has to happen is you have to learn how to swim first, and then you can save people, right? So I thought that was a great point. So key point number 8. This was a really interesting one, insightful. People leave Providence because they fail to be obedient. Okay? So here we go into the different reasons why people leave Providence, right? 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 11 different things. And why is this important? Because if you know these 11 different things, the reasons why people leave Providence, like it's going to be any number of these reasons. Some of them will be in combination, and maybe some people are singular, but there's 10, 11 things that was listed out. But if we know this list really well, then we're going to really be able to manage lives much better because we'll be able to strengthen them in these 11 areas. Okay? So the first one, why do people leave Providence? Number 1 is because they didn't know, like they didn't clearly know or realize the history of the Holy Trinity and Jesus properly, right? They don't know the history. Secondly,
is because they center on themselves, which means we need to teach people how to center on God, right? The third one is they fail to overcome tribulations. Yeah, they go through a hard time, they couldn't get through it, and that's why they struggle. Another one is misunderstanding Sunsteam, misunderstanding their brothers, and misunderstanding leaders. I've seen that happen a lot too, right? Another reason why people leave Providence is they couldn't do things according to their own will. Now, when I first heard this, like, oh, what does that mean? It's like they wanted to live their life the way that they wanted, but because Providence doesn't allow them to live their life, this is why they leave. And I've seen that before too. The sixth one is they're tempted by slanders. The seventh one is they feel left out. Eighth one is they didn't know the word, right? They didn't know God's will. They don't know salvation properly, right? So these are things that we need to teach. The ninth one, they were hurt by leaders. And that has happened a lot. That has, yeah. It's something where a lot of people have those types of experiences. The 10th one, I think, is a very, very common one too, is, opposite sex. And last but not least is they looked at slanders online and believed it, even though they were told not to do it, right? So these are the things that we have to help people understand really well. Like, even if I look at that 11th one, we were told not to look at the slanders online or believe these things, right? And I would say that, like, how would you counteract that? Would you counteract that with just saying, hey, don't watch it. Hey, don't watch it, right? Because that's going to make people want to do it. And I think that's why we have people who have the mission to look at those things so that they can educate people really well on what's happening in the slandering world, right? They need to be educated on it more than just don't look at it, right? So I think this was a great 11 key things to look at why people leave and what we can do to help people not, to overcome these 11 different things. And of course, everyone doesn't struggle over all 11 things. Some people struggle over one. Some people are struggling over a combination of 3 or 4 of them, right? So the part that was deepest for me was actually the conclusion, right? Which was like the core. I thought this was the deepest part for myself. I just was really moved by it, right? And this conclusion, this final point was, love God with all your heart, will, and life. Then love your brothers. This is the life of destroying and breaking Satan's purpose, right? And I think this is the one that we've all wanted to understand even better, right? So Satan is always working through people. And that's why we have to be careful about people, right? The moment we're not careful about people, we're going to get, we're going to be those that are going to be tempted by them, right? And if you think about it, this is what happened 6 months ago, where we weren't careful and we just trusted absolutely everyone without checking, right? And I think Susie talked about this last week too, is if something sounds ridiculous, we have to be those that is to check it, right? If it sounds ridiculous, we've got to check it, right? So this is, there's going to be people we thought that would never become united with Satan, but they will, and they will be the ones that tempt others. They'll be the ones that complain and slander, speak ill of things, and that's why we need to be those that take notice immediately, defeat them, discern who are these people we're talking to, what are they talking about, right? So I found this one to be pretty scary, where Sunsteam said there's even situations where people, they make videos and show these videos to those who are working hard or work discreetly in Providence on their videos. And then they intimidate these members and make them, tremble, saying, if you leave Providence, I will delete these videos, kind of thing, right? So I'm like, wow, I wonder what kind of blackmail this actually is, right? It's kind of like blackmail. Oh, if you don't do this, I'm going to delete these videos, kind of thing, right? Or they post online. And I think this probably is what the rumors that do come out is like, hey, guess what? This person left Providence. And then they try to make Providence people attack that person. And like that kind of happened too. I think that's some of the stuff we have noticed, right? Well, not in our countries, but probably we've noticed it happening in, like, say, Korea and stuff like that too. And, these are things that people are testifying about. Like, this is actually what happened. And that's why we have to really be careful, right? We have to be careful of Satan. We have to be careful about those that are coming against us. And we have to be those and be bold and brave and strong,
contact the right people, whether it's headquarters, whether it's your head leaders, IMD, whatever it is, so that we can overcome these types of things that are happening, right? So what's the key point? The key point is, if we have that absolute conviction, like we love God, we love the Holy Spirit, we love the Holy Son and Jesus, right? And if we deliver the love of God and Jesus to others, and if we reveal the Holy Spirit and deliver her love, and if we absolutely love the one who came with the mission, then we can destroy Satan, right? It's about this absolute conviction, this love that we have for the Holy Trinity, Jesus, and the one that God has sent, right? And if we can, show people that love, right, then we can destroy Satan. So I hope, like, that part was really deep for me. It's like, we can, if we can defeat Satan, we can disable Satan from fulfilling his own will. And all we need to do is obey the words of the man of mission. Obey the one that God has sent. And that in itself is destroying Satan, right? And of course, loving our brothers is such a key thing too, especially what we see what's happened over the last 6 months. A lot of times, we start fighting amongst each other, thinking, oh, who's right, who's wrong? Did you say this? Did you do that kind of thing? Or whose side are you on kind of thing, right? And I'm not saying don't discern, but we still need to love each other and live without hating each other too. And this is kind of the life that we have that destroys Satan. Because Satan's coming to, he's coming to block the will. He's coming to destroy those who love God. But on top of that, what's he trying to do? He's trying to break us from within, right? The love inside Providence. So we're not harmonious, so that we fight with each other instead. And that's, that kind of happened over the last 6 months. So I hope it's something that we'll really, really be able to put these words into action, right? We have to be harmonious with each other. Don't let Satan break us, right? Don't let Satan break us. Don't let Satan try to find fault with, make us find faults with each other, fight with each other, intimidate each other. We can't allow that to happen. So we have to drive Satan out, right? Drive him out because, it's like, even if you drive out Satan, one of the words that came out is, even if you drive out Satan, if you don't fulfill love, what's the point? You know what I mean? Is there any benefit in just like driving out Satan if we're not going to fulfill the love, right? When God's will is about love, we can't just, drive out Satan and then still, not love each other. So let's make sure that we live the life of destroying Satan. So there's at the very, very end, there's like a couple conversations with God, like a Q&A that some seem to have with God. And, I like some of these questions too, because some of them were talked about last Wednesday message also, like, God, why don't you, stop or block the harm that Cain gives to Abel. And, the biggest answer there was, it's about human responsibility, right? So, but the one point that I liked a lot is when God answers like, hey, think about this. If the evil, the wicked harm the good, what God is not looking for is are we harming them back? What God is watching is, if we are truly good, do you treat the evil with good? Right? Do you treat them, the evil treats you wickedly, but do you treat them back with love, with the word, right? Or are we fighting back with evil, right? And I thought that was really deep, right? If we're really good, then God will see it through our actions during those moments, right? And everyone is treated according to what they've done. And if you do wrong, you get treated as someone who's done wrong, right? So we have to kind of reach that level. So, like, I really liked those answers, right? So, the second question was about God knowing good and evil. So, wouldn't it be easier, God, if you just placed like a fence in advance so that the pests or mountain animals couldn't come into the field or ruin or eat the grain? Then wouldn't that be better for the good, as they're not harmed by evil, right? So, it would be
so much better for the good if you put that fence around there, because then we wouldn't suffer at all, right? Like, we're the ones who believe in you, right? We're the ones that are following you, trying to fulfill God's will, right? So don't you want to protect us in advance? And God's answer is like, but shouldn't you know about the good and evil? So if you're good, then you know there is evil. And as you receive harm, experience and undergo suffering, you come to be keenly aware and live without sinning. And I was like, wow, that's really deep, right? Because we go through those experiences, you realize how bad something really is. Because one thing about human beings is there's theory and then there's experience. And people change because of experience more than just theory. Just, oh, you know it's bad. But when you feel the suffering, you're like, oh, this is really bad, right? You become really aware, and then you're like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to suffer anymore like this, right? So we have to be those that really understand this to that extent. Right, so I like that answer too. Like that was a great question, right? And when God continues to answer a bit more, there's another point. He's like, hey, don't just look at the sky and ask for the rain to come, but go plant trees, make a forest, and if you do that, don't you think I'd bring rain? But if there's nothing, like if you ask for rain, but there's nothing there that needs the rain, then why would I put rain onto the world? Go and do your responsibility. Go plant some trees, and it needs rain, so I'm going to send the rain down on it, right? So, this one point here was, Sasi said that, the message said, God said, people cut down all the trees, they use them all up and make the land dry. Only when the rain doesn't come do they realize and start to plant trees again, right? And that's why we have to realize and take action, right? Just like that one thing when it comes to like not having enough rain is because we cut too many trees down, right? We made the land barren and dry. But remember, there's a cycle of how rain actually happens. You can't get rain like all of a sudden in a desert when there's no the process of condensation, evaporation, and then rain coming down, right? And that's why we have to realize and take action, right? So yeah, there's a lot of deep stuff in there, and I really thought to myself, I was like, yeah, these are the things that we have to ask God and also receive the answers to, right? So yeah, I really like them, and I hope that you guys enjoyed these types of things too. But yeah, those are the two questions that I wanted to go over. All right, so there it is, guys. That is today's Q&A. Not Q&A, sorry. That was today's Sunday Master word study. Lots of great points, 8 key points, a good conclusion, which makes it a 9th point. And then on top of that, we had the Q&A at the very end. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that word study and that it's something that helps and benefits you too. All right. So that means we're going to move into the second break of the day.
If this love breaks, then everything shatters. But I won't get it to that point, so it doesn't matter. I pray my love will never fail and my ashes make you smile. You're the reason why I'm singing all about you. This waterfall, love is pouring out. It keeps flowing, never running out. Hey, turn on the nitrous to ignite this. Let me write this love on a letter. I let them know. This love got me pushing my weight up. I got it impressed, so I'll stay up. The drip is impressive, I'm way up. My love is unchanging, I'm next up. My love is like a waterfall, it's endless. My love is like a waterfall, it's endless. Oh, you and me, and it's you and me. Oh, you and me, and it's you and me. I poured out my love endlessly like a waterfall, so this waterfall love won't become dry, no. It won't change, no. I won't let you go. You're the only one I want now, so close. Where you put your heart determines where you go. It's just a matter how you said it. Wanna let you know that it's only set on you. For it to come true, I can never put you second long as I'm with you. My love is like a waterfall, it's endless. My love is like a waterfall, it's endless. Oh, you and me, and is like a waterfall, it's endless. My love is like a waterfall, it's endless. Oh, you are one, and it's you I need. Oh, you are one, and it's you I need. Ooh.
Okay, so let's get into today's final segment, which is 2G Talks with Eddie Kweon. Today, Eddie's going to talk about how just he really feels how God keeps giving us new things that we need to do and focus on at each time, and that God's thoughts and ways are higher than our thoughts, right? And of course, it's not easy because a lot of times we have to start doing things we've never done before, right? We face unfamiliar things, but Eddie said that, he really felt that God has been raising each of us through those things this year. And so he's reflecting and sharing about that in today's podcast segment. Okay. So everyone, please welcome all the way over there from San Francisco. This is Eddie Kweon with 2G Talks.
Hello everyone, welcome to another week's episode of 2G Talks. I hope everyone is doing well, and this is what may be the penultimate episode of, at least how 2G Talks is right now, right? I do think that after this week and next week, it is going to evolve into something else, and something will change with this too. So I really hope that, everyone is doing well. Actually, and related to that, and related to what I just mentioned, today's topic has to deal with those kind of things too. I think I may have mentioned recently that I started teaching some newcomers, and wow, like it's so great. It's like they're just so like they're young kids, but they're so bright and they're very smart and they're very mature for their age. So it's like they're observing it well, and they're absorbing it too well, right? It's kind of making me scared. But what I was going to share today has to do with that, and I think hopefully this relates to everyone, and that this can be something that helps you through a lot of things too. So as I was preparing to teach these young guys, I was like, wow, like this is an opportunity, because actually they have exactly 10 weeks from the time that they would start learning until the end of the year. And when I was really praying about that and thinking about that, I was like, wow, like so they have actually 10 opportunities to learn. And when I really thought about everything, I was like, wow, like what would it mean to have learned times and half a times within this year? And so when I really thought about that, I was like, wow, like at first, because when the idea of teaching them came up for the first time, I was like, yeah, we could just take our time with it. They're young boys, and can make it easy for them. But then I was like, wow, what would it feel like, especially actually when you're young and when you care about things like more, like to find out and to feel that you were part of it and that you met the time. And someone told me something like that's, I guess, kind of equivalent, right? And in the world, many people wait for the rapture, right? In terms of Christians, at least. And so there were some newcomers that in Hawaii that they taught, and they learned everything. And while they were teaching, the newcomer opened up to them saying like, wow, like I really am looking forward to the rapture and stuff like that. But actually it was already 2016. So they didn't know that they missed it. And when they found out that they missed it, they were quite like a little bit deflated about it. But that's just a kind of a funny story, right? Because we still have these 1,000 years, and we can rapture more, and we're in that time, right? So there's really nothing to be discouraged about. Yeah, but so I felt kind of similar, like grain of thought, related to all of those kind of things. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll take the opportunity to teach them. And then so suddenly the stakes became higher, and like the way that I was preparing and the way that I thought about it changed drastically too. And so when I was like thinking of preparing, I had to like condense the lessons and come up with the lesson plan, and like see which of the lessons can tie together to kind of form a larger picture, and how I can get to them with the end in mind while going through the individual lessons. And so I was really thinking about that, and as I was preparing, I was like, okay, I'm gonna come up with these master lecture notes, like this like lecture notes that'll cover like a 10 segment or 10 lesson plan to cover like as much ground as possible, so that it's not just for this current time of teaching, but that I can continue to do this like even next year as well. Because one of the things I want to do before going to law school, if that is, God's path for me, is to teach more and to build up this foundation of faith and the spiritual side, so that when I go there, I'm not going to lose these things. And that in fact, that I might be able to continue to do it in law school, which, right now I can say a lot easier. Maybe when I'm there, it'll be so difficult with studying and stuff that I won't be able to. But that's what the mentality was, because I felt like even when I spent some time with my friends in the world, I was like, wow, I can't do this, right? I can't live for just the body, and I can't live just surrounded in this sort of physical environment, because I will die. And so I was like, okay, I need to do spiritual things, but in order to do that when I'm there, I'm gonna have to build up the foundation now. So I was like in the mind to like prepare these master lecture notes for like the whole series, and when I was trying to do that, I only had 2 days to prepare for the first one. And in that time, I was like pulling my hair, and I was like, reading through all of my old notes and like looking at past material to try to prepare. And I wrote down like tidbits here and there, and I was like reading the message once a day, and I couldn't come up with like something in writing, which is what I wanted to do. And so, but because of that, I had to prepare so much more fervently, like in prayer and in going over the material and like practicing it, and like recording the audio as I was practicing, and like kind of putting down the material in my head. And the realization came, and this is kind of the core of today, is that it really made me depend on God a lot more. Like a lot more. And I was joking with someone right before recording this too, that actually for the first few days after teaching them, I was kind of deflated actually for the first few days. And there were a lot of reasons. I can't just pin it on this. But one of the reasons came, and it was kind of scary, because I felt that like, wow, like, is this what I'm going to have to do for each of the lessons? And that was kind of a terrifying thought. But at the same time, like it took me some time to kind of chew on that and to digest it and swallow it. But as I was talking to the member right before coming, I was like, but isn't that so much greater? Right? That I have to depend on God absolutely while teaching. Right? Originally, I just wanted to be something like a reflex, something that's just like cookie cutter, and that like I'd have prepared absolutely. But is that the life that God wants us to live? And that something He has taught us to live, and that we should be living in this time. And I was like, okay, maybe that's not the case. Maybe I am supposed to put my life on the line as I'm doing this too, and not just with teaching these boys, but just with everything too. I don't know if people have read this, but even or have watched this the Sunday or the Saturday morning message, right, from Sonsangin. But it moved me a lot, because something we talked about that part too. How he has developed his life, and he has made it so that every single thing that he does it together with God. Like he checks with God about every single thing. And then I realized, like, in line with this story and with teaching these guys, was that that's exactly what I had to do in this situation. But not just that, in everything too, because and not just this, like, I'm setting different kind of prayer conditions together with other people, and we were talking about this, and I realized, like, yeah, like, all of us, every single one of us, when we're on fire, and we feel a certain way, we feel so inflamed, we're willing to do everything, right? When we feel zealous. But in most cases that I've seen, and this isn't just to do with faith, but it has to do with everything, that kind of zealousness doesn't last when it's rooted on just something like a conviction to meet a certain goal. Right? But what I realized was something is that he lives his everyday life and his daily life of faith, and trusting God with everything, and asking God for everything, asking the Trinity about everything, checking with them about each and everything. And each and every action that he does is intended to be done together with the Trinity too. And so as I was thinking about teaching these boys and teaching these lessons, and like what that process is like, and like giving everything and like preparing like really thoroughly, and I was like, wow, like this is something that I have to do. With this, but with everything. But I really know that at the end, and this is kind of like that last story letter that something wrote, right, that the Holy Spirit sent us, and that like God was saying that His thoughts and our thoughts are different, and in the end, don't things work out well, right, with God's will. And I was so moved by that, and like this whole process, like everything this year has been like that. And actually, the thing that something you said in the Saturday morning message, which I really hope that everyone can experience for themselves. This is something that I've actually wanted all Providence people and like and other people to feel too, because there have been many difficulties, and I'm at a point where I can actually say there have been difficulties, right? Before, I used to hate that. I used to hate it when I would say, or that someone else would say, like, oh, okay, this is a time of difficulty and we're going through tribulations. I was like, okay, that's one way to look at it, but also we have to, look at the bright side, right? And be positive. So I hated it whenever people focus on that, but I'm finally at a point in the year where I can say, yes, there have been difficulties, but yes, we've overcome those difficulties. And actually, I felt in so many ways that, God has put us into the places that would make us strong. And it's not to say that that he purposely puts trouble our way or anything like that, but so many things have come about where we've been blessed as a result, where we've had to learn, where we were pushed and we grew, and each of us had to do so many things that I don't even know if you felt that you were capable of doing those things earlier this year before they happened, but I'm sure that everyone has felt that way in some different degree. And if you haven't yet, in these last 2 months, that you will go through that you will be challenged to some degree, but that you will come out as gold, right? That we will separate out the dross, that we will separate the iron, and we'll separate out the things that decay and become golden people, and who will be able to walk that straight and narrow path. And I really believe that this is the way that God makes us. And so in a way, yeah, I'm not wishing difficulty on anyone, but I'm wishing that everyone overcomes it, and that that each come out victorious at the very end. And so this is my way of cheering for everyone. And really, from the perspective of a second generation, this is something that I want second gen, but also people who are new to faith and people who've been in Providence a long time but have come from the former faith, whether they didn't believe in God before or whether they were a Christian. This is something that I want each and every single person to feel. And if it's something that you've already felt, that we can reflect on this, that we can thank God for this, and we can give Him glory together through these things. So, anyways, that was today's segment about this. And like I said, this might be the penultimate segment for the way that 2G Talks is now, but I was actually so grateful because I actually talked to a member last week, and if they're listening to this, they know who they are, but they told me how they've been closely following this segment for a long time, and I was so very grateful for that too. And for everyone at home who listens to this segment and to all of the MSD 117.8 stuff together past the sky, I know the vast majority of people don't comment on this, and that's okay. Of course, if you do comment on it means a lot too. But the fact that you're listening, and that in some way, shape, or form, that this segment and the stuff that Pastor Sky and everyone else on the MSC 117.8 share, that you guys are able to listen from it and hopefully gain from it, that part is very encouraging. And so I'll keep praying for this segment too, and I truly pray that you guys can pray for everyone who's connected in this sort of way, because if you look at the view count on these videos, right, hundreds of people are watching it. And so even if we don't communicate on the comment section, hopefully we can communicate through prayer and pray for our brothers and sisters at this time. I really felt the value and the power of prayer recently, and I've been setting condition together with other guys, and I would love to do so more with everyone too, and everyone on the MSC 117.8. So let's really round out the year. It's already the end of October, so let's finish strong, and I can't wait to see you guys at the finish line, together with Pastor Sky, together with the man of mission of this time period, and together with the Trinity. And I can't wait to celebrate with everyone. And I know we're already doing it now, but I really want to celebrate at the end of the year together with everyone. So I thank you guys, and I'll catch you guys on next week, the 2-year anniversary of 2G Talks. So with this, I'll catch you guys on another week's episode of 2G Talks.
All right, and thank you, Eddie, for another wonderful episode of 2G Talks, and I hope that all you guys have received a lot of grace from it. If you have any comments, just go ahead, leave it below. I'm sure he would be happy to answer your questions, or if you have any comments for him too. All right, so there it is, guys. That is today's Monday podcast. Hope you guys super enjoyed it just as much as I have. Enjoy your Monday, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
the morning star drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like